Hello, fourth grade readers. Today we are going to complete Lesson 6 together. The I can statements for this lesson are I can describe the life of William Carlos Williams and explain what inspired him to write poetry. I can cite evidence from the text to support the answers to my questions. Part 1. Read the author's note. This is the author's note that accompanied the book A River of Words. What inspired William Carlos Williams? Today we are going to do a close read. In this close read, we will read the author's note more than one time, focusing on different layers of our understanding. The first layer that we are going to think about is the words. Can I say the words accurately? And do I know what the words mean? If we do not know the meaning of a word, we're going to highlight it. I'm going to do this with you. So at this part of the lesson, I need you to have out a highlighter and your copy of Lesson 6. Feel free to highlight words that you do not know. Maybe they're words you've not heard of. Or maybe they're words that you're just curious about what they mean or how to say them. Let's begin. William Carlos Williams was a family doctor in his hometown, Rutherford, New Jersey, for more than 40 years. I highlighted Rutherford, New Jersey because it has a capital. You're going to notice that a lot of words that are in the middle of a sentence that have capitals are proper nouns. That is the name of a place. That is his hometown, Rutherford, New Jersey. Let's read the next sentence. He specialized in pediatrics, care of children, obstetrics, delivering babies. In the parentheses, you're going to notice the author gave us clues to what the meaning of these two words are. Pediatrics, care of children, obstetrics, delivering babies. So when babies are born, William Carlos Williams helps deliver the baby. Let's go to the next. Records indicate that he presided over more than 3,000 births. You may have highlighted the word records, indicate, presided. Let's think about those words together. Records. So you have a record of your grades from kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. It's a record of what happened in those grades. So when a doctor has a visit with a patient, they record what happened in that visit. So records indicate that he presided over more than 3,000 births. If we take out the word indicate, I think we can insert the word shows. Records show that he presided over more than 3,000 births. I think as a doctor, if he presided over something, he probably just took care of it, right? So let's read it again. Records show that he presided, he took care of over more than 3,000 births. I think that makes sense. Like most doctors at the time, William made house calls, spending his days and some nights too, caring for the sick in their homes. A house call. Nowadays, we go to the doctor. A house call is when you call the doctor and they come to your house. During the Great Depression, here's another word with capitals, when many adults were unemployed and families could not afford to pay, Williams helped them anyway. Let's stop at the word Great Depression. So the Great Depression was a time in the United States when everyone was struggling. People were struggling to find food, jobs, houses. Basic necessities were very hard to come by. It was also a time when people were unemployed. Un at the beginning of a word means not. So these people were not employed. So they could not afford to pay him. So they did not have money to pay him. And even though they couldn't pay him with money, he helped them anyway. Let's go to the next sentence. Often, after stitching a wound, dispensing medication for a fever, or helping a woman deliver her child after a long night of labor, he would leave with a homemade scarf, a jar of jam, or a warm casserole as payment. Let's go back to the word wound. Typically, when a doctor is stitching something, it's like a cut or a scrape that's really deep. So a wound is when you've scraped yourself really bad and you need stitches. Dispensing medicine for a fever. I know that doctors give medicine, so dispensing might mean give. Let's go to the next paragraph. Despite the constant demand of his profession, Williams always made time for poetry. Despite constant demand. I'm just going to think really quickly about what a doctor would do. I think they're really busy, and they're probably constantly getting calls for patients. And I think the author means that even though being a doctor was really hard, Williams always made time for poetry. Let's read the next sentence. In his earliest verses, he adopted the method of traditional English poets who focused on grand topics and used regular patterns of rhyme. Okay, in his earliest poetry, because I know poems have verses, like stanzas. So I think it means in his earliest poems, he used grand topics and rhyme. Slowly, however, he developed his own distinctive style in which he used to order lines, brief stanzas, and little to or no punctuation. So I think this means slowly over time, he had his own distinctive style. Distinctive. If I take that word out, I think that it means he had his own style, his own unique style. So I'm going to infer distinctive means unique. And he used to order his lines, use brief stanzas. I think brief means just small, and little or no punctuation. And perhaps the most important contribution to American poetry was his focus on everyday objects and the lives of common people. Perhaps the most important, I'm thinking about the word contribute, and I think if you contribute, you give. Like contributing to a conversation, you're giving to the conversation. So I think contribution means this is what he gave to American poetry. In his poems, readers can find fire trucks, cats, flower pots, plums, babies, construction workers, and refrigerators. By stripping away unnecessary details, Williams tried to see the thing itself with great intensity and perception. I think if we strip away something, we take it away. So I think he's taken away the details that are unnecessary. Thinking about that word un at the beginning of a word means not necessary. So he takes away the details that were not necessary. Let's read the last paragraph. Although he wrote poems for most of his adult life, his poetry was not well known until he was in his 60s. By then, he had already published more than a dozen books, as well as several volumes of essays, plays, and short stories. Today is considered one of the most influential American poet, and his work is read and studied in schools and universities all over the world. Williams died in 1963 at the age of 79. I'm going to stop at this word published. So by then he had already published more than a dozen books. So I think that just means he wrote them and they became books like on a shelf. They were published. And then influential. I see that word influence. It sounds like a word I already know. So I think he influenced American poetry. He's considered one of the most influential American poets. So that means other people probably admired his work or borrowed lines from his poems. So now that we have read this text one time, think about the words that we just highlighted. Do you understand the text a little bit more because we've stopped and thought about what the words mean? This is the first reading